The Moot-Hall in Alfreton was centred at the top of King Street where the War Memorial stands today, and where the original marketplace developed. On the hilltop there was an ancient meeting hall known as the Moot-Hall. A prison once existed beneath the hall, where the constable would lock up prisoners until he could arrange transport to Derby Gaol. The Moot-Hall was also where the local justice of the peace sat in judgment. This practice continued until the mid-19th century, and in 1856 an assembly room was built as an annex to the George Hotel by William Palmer-Morewood, and this was used by the County Court and Petty Sessions until Mr Frederick Lee built the Town Hall, Post Office and County Court offices on the High Street, which is where the court then sat. The next move came in 1934 when the police station and county courthouse were erected on Hall Street. The following transcript was taken from the Glover's History of Derbyshire, Volume 11, and describes in great detail the archaeology undertaken after the Moot-Hall was demolished in 1914. The Old Court House or Moot-Hall at Alfreton. Written by William Stevenson. Original pillar found in the old courthouse. All that was left of the old Moot-Hall at Alfreton, occupying an island site in the market-place. The ordinary person would probably be ignorant that in the premises which was occupied by Mr J Redfern, there lay hidden amid many 17th or 18th century additions the remains of the ancient market hall or court house. Dr. Pegge says Alfreton esteemed a barony or honour. And there may have been an earlier Moot-Hall than this one, which probably served the further purpose of a market hall for the chartered market granted by Henry III in 1251, to Thomas de Chaworth of Marnhan, Nottinghamshire, and Robert de Lathom, who were the joint lords. Thomas de Alfreton, the last of that line, died in 1241, and the manor then descended to his nephew Thomas de Chaworth and to Robert de Lathom, who had married one of Thomas's sisters and co-heiresses, who sold his moiety to Chaworth. The building was partly of brick and partly of stone. Its demolition has given the opportunity for a more accurate knowledge of its construction. The hall, divested of the 17th and 18th century additions, the object of which was to convert the premises to business or residential purposes, proved to have been the northern or High Street portion, consisting of a frontage of 48 feet and 6 inches. It was a building of 3 bays in length, 2 of which, the west ones, were excavated possibly as a prison. In this underground apartment was a built-up stone column 3 feet wide and 2 feet thick, finished with a heavy capstone. The basement walls, 3 feet in thickness, were of quarry-faced stone capped by a chamfered plinth a few inches above the ground level. A south entrance had been in use to the end, but a blocked north one was plain near the centre on the market side, the latter possibly the original. The basement was floored over with oak beams 14 inches by 14 inches and oak joists about 5 inches by 5 inches in section. Some of the joists had been replaced by oak studs from half-timber walls or walls of post and panel, 2 sheets of which, one being the remains of an outer south wall, survived at higher levels. The panels were formed of strong oak riven laths tightly fitted into the grooved edges of the posts and thickly plastered on either side. The first chamber floor was of the same size joists and timbers, 3 of the latter forming a centre line the full length of the building, into which the heavy joists were tenoned. 3 such beams called for 4 supports, of which the end walls of the building formed two, a third, or inner one towards the west, was an oak-wrought and carved octagonal column, 1 foot and 3 inches in diameter, long hidden by being box cased, to prepare for which the column was reduced to a square, and so mutilated that a model, 1/8 full size, has been necessary to show the original details, and its position standing on the ground floor beams and supporting those of the first floor. This model, together with the mutilated original, is here shown by photographic illustrations, which it is hoped may lead to an authoritative date being assigned to the great timbers of this building. Inquiries already made tend to prove that the details of this column are unique, but based architecturally on the Gothic periods. The second discovery was first-floor longitudinal beams, some distance from the end walls, threw off secondary beams at an angle of 45 degrees, their trend being of corners of the oblong building. These could only be what the chamber story was originally, an over-wooden one, and that the office of these angular joists were to carry the upper corner posts, the whole thing aground, and an upper one of half timber placed by a later one of double brick. An original story half-timber building was thus adumbrated chambers in the roof and floors, except in the basement, of plaster run upon reeds. It was hoped to find evidence of a second worked column, provision for such, after the manner of a respond, patent in the eastern stone wall of the basement. It was found that the brick period, following that of the wood, had destroyed all evidence, the beam ends here being supported by a 14-inch wall. The position of this brick wall marking the western boundary of the eastern bay, itself standing upon a basement wall of stone, suggested an original ground-story apartment at the eastern end, leaving the two western bays as one apartment with the above oak column in the center, the whole more or less open to the market itself, serving as a covered market, or a women's market. Here was a portion of a great hearth or fireplace, brought to light in this eastern apartment, and one that dated before the late one in the eastern brick wall. This had been a well-wrought stone stack carefully coined at the corners, the fireplace opening 4 feet high, having a broad plain chamfer with a Gothic stopping, date yet undefined, about 1 foot above the floor level. This chimney stack was found perfect on the first floor or chamber story, and to terminate under the plaster floor grooved edges of the roof chambers. Here the fireplace opening was 4 feet by 4 feet clear inside, and 2 feet and 9 inches from back to front. The same broad chamfer occurred, but the stopping were plainer or less elaborate. The Mantle Stone, a ponderous thing, was an entire 6 feet and 3 inches in length and 1 foot in depth, and over 1 foot in thickness, all of which stones are preserved with the hope that something will be made of them to preserve the memory of the old building's past. The Moot-Hall or courtroom would of course be of the first floor, where the older stone fireplace in the back or south wall suggested a consulting or private room separate from the larger courtroom 2-bay apartment. The fireplace was here discovered bricked up, the rubbish behind yielding fragments, and many board, of stone slates or slab tiles, the original form of covering, one bedded in moss, which still lingers in the town. Nothing could be clearly proved regarding the mode of access to this court-house or Moot-Hall chamber. As entrance in the main front of the basement suggested descending outer steps from the market-place pavement, this in a like building at Yarmouth, and one the Moot-Hall, Ely's Guildhall, late at Nottingham, may have been by an outer ascending stairway. The great timbers of this building were thought to be of value, and it was hinted that they might be used for repairs at the roof of Westminster Hall. They were officially inspected for this purpose, but on disturbance it was found that time or the worm had cut too deep into their flesh, for such an honour to be granted. Nevertheless, this heart of oak will survive in one or more chairs, reproduced from a typical Derbyshire original 16th or 17th century specimen, kindly lent for the purpose by Mr L. S. Stroyan, of the Old Bank, Alfreton, from his old family collection. Thanks for watching and don't forget to subscribe and give us a thumbs up.